I don't make it home tonight. Wanna make love to you for the
You know
last
what?
time, baby. No, not pronouns and shit, but you know what I'm saying?
You
Like,
gonna have a you gonna have a lot of editing to do. I'm so weak, not pronouns. Okay.
hey, 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 it's Well Body Wednesday, and I am here with my beautiful friend Keys or Keyonia Williams. We you're not new to the channel though because we already did a little thing
We actually haven't done this in a long time.
So I got my boo here too. She's a mental health therapist, and we are in the energy of Gemini, and Gemini energy is mental energy, governs over our mind and mental energy. So I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about mental health. I'm going to edit this part out because I'm rambling. Anyway,
Okay.
tell us about yourself, girl.
I'm Keyonia. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I have been practicing mental health for over 15 years. However, I'm currently not seeing individuals. I'm practicing mental health from a more holistic standpoint these days, with the emphasis on Afrocentric mental health. So really, that just takes into account our total wellness, because I think that sometimes we think about mental health in like a very isolated way, but it's connected to literally every single thing, every ounce of our being, right? Like how we think, where we live, the environment, what we eat, all of those, it's all interconnected in relationship, family of origin, etc., etc. So really just focusing on practicing mental health in a non-traditional way. So that is me, and that's what I'm doing these days.
Yes, and I love that you said that in a holistic way because as we know, the universe is mental. Everything starts in the mind and then extends from there. So I love how you painted that picture beautifully. And them glasses is glassing, girl.
Thank you, thank you. These are Shayla's.
Oh, I love those. They look good on you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna start with a little icebreaker first. So, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Several things, but the first thing was a teacher. And the reason why is because I had so many really great, like, black old lady teachers growing up. They were so sweet and gentle and kind and nurturing. And I just remember being a little girl being like, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher when I grow up, because I just wanted to be what they were to me, because I felt like just so loved and cared for and nurtured by them. So I was like, I have to be a teacher because I just wanted to be that. I wanted to embody that. So first it was a teacher. It did change, and I did study to be a teacher initially when I went to college, but that is the first thing that I wanted to be when I was a kid, was a teacher.
Okay. And my follow-up question is that the same work that you're doing now? And that's connected.
Actually, it is.
Yeah.
It is like, teaching at a university. And then I do a lot of education in the community specific to Black mental health, training and educating other clinicians and social workers and folks in the mental health field. So yes, I am a teacher, not in a like traditional in the classroom sense. Well, I guess in all senses, I am a teacher. I'm an educator. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but have you heard people say people who go into the mental health field are crazy themselves? Like, all right, how you feel about that?
That's so funny. I feel like people say that all the time, and I don't know. I think it just depends on like what you deem as crazy. Because I don't know, like for me, I think what it could mean is like you came from like a dysfunctional family, right? That's to me, that's an aspect of crazy. I mean, crazy is not the most, politically correct way to say it, but I would not like I don't really see anything wrong with that. Like, I don't find it offensive, because I feel like most people that go into mental health because they have like some close connection with some type of quote unquote crazy. So yeah, and I mean, shoot, I have a mental health therapist too, so I wouldn't say I'm crazy, but shoot, I have my things that I need to work on. So yeah.
And I think it's all in your definition of what crazy means too. Like, what is it? Like,
exactly.
They're so broad. Like, shit, I'm crazy, and I mean, like, can be,
and I think it's got a stigma too, because I don't even necessarily see crazy as
a
like
bad thing. That's what I'm saying.
There are definitely elements and aspects of me that are really crazy. So I think like out of my mind.
Yes.
Yeah, too. In some instances, but
And I think people are accepting. It's becoming more acceptable too, less taboo, mental health, and just the word crazy and all of that, because it's so broad, and the stigma is like diminishing, because there are levels of crazy. Like, you could be like wild, crazy, fun free, daring, risk taking, all of that, but to like actually like needing medication and things like that. And so I just
I think society deems anything like quote unquote outside of the norm as crazy, right? So it's like with that ideology, it's like maybe we're all crazy, maybe none of us are crazy, so it's really all about,
we're all crazy. That's mine. We're all a variation of crazy. Okay, we all crazy together. And I feel like we people going into, like, even in any field, but people going into the mental health field are with that, what am I trying to say? Oh my gosh, it's off the tip of my tongue. We go into fields that we need ourselves, like we seek the healing that we need and whatnot. And so as like, if we're in a profession of like health and wellness, like from a nutrition aspect, I'm attracted to that because that's something that I struggle with, growing up. Mental health, and mental health is so broad. Like, it's connected to everything, like you started out saying. So there's some form of mental something within your family, you or whatever, so you're attracted to this field because it's something that's within you, or even with, wherever you go. And
I think that aspect could be like it could be a positive, or I don't want to say a negative, but a hindrance, because I think some people do seek out certain professions because it heals aspects and elements of them, but that could get tricky, because I think that you have to do a certain level of work before you go out and supporting people, right, in their mental health. And that's not to say you have to be perfect or you have to reach this place of arrival. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I think that some people haven't, like, they might be getting into the field, mental health or otherwise, a little bit premature, right? Because there's definitely some foundational things that should be in place before you actually like go out and start supporting people. And so that's not to say that we're ever like, oh, I'm completely healed, because no, I'm working on myself every day. I'm evolving every day, and that's gonna be until the day I take my last breath. But I think sometimes people prematurely get into the field and they start bleeding on people and hurting people because they haven't really done all of the necessary work and got to a place of health where they can walk alongside someone and hold their hand and help them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And
because I think this work is not like outside of me. I don't think that like I am the work. This work is me. And I also need to be at a certain place health-wise if I'm going to be out educating people and supporting people with their own mental health, right? I have to, I think, actively be working on my mental health. Not that I have to be perfect, but I need to be at a point where I can really support people and be solid in who I am in my mental health. To a degree, that doesn't mean I'm perfect. And I think that some people start that work a little bit prematurely. prematurely, and it's like, ooh, you probably got a little bit more work to do before you really go out and start like supporting people. That's all I'm.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned that because a lot of people go into the work unconsciously, like it's not conscious to them that they have things to work on, but then as they're getting,
think that was me.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that, because like I said, I wanted to be a teacher. So when I got to college, I was studying education because I was going to be a teacher. But actually, I got into social work because I started doing my own healing and my own personal work, which then. Right, so like you said, it was like an unconscious thing, or it just was in alignment with my mission and what I was supposed to do.
Absolutely,
with my life.
And that's why I was like, there's also the spiritual lens. So we're called to these places because, and that was when I lost my train of thought. Is we're attracted to these things because that's something that we need, not knowing that we need it. But then when we're in counsel with our clients or whatever, you find like, oh, this is a reflection of me. I'm being reflected some things, and so there's this mirroring thing happening in the sessions with your clients or in the work that's being done.
Absolutely,
and you find
and that's why I say you have to have done a certain amount of work, because some people don't know how to sort that out or sift through that, or not allow it to kind of harm them or hinder them,
or
as
be
the clinician.
codependent on in that relationship. So that's where I think that comes from. There's crazy people go into mental health because there have been a lot of toxic mental health therapists that have projected onto their clients.
Absolutely.
And not did the work that they needed to do, like you're saying.
Prematurely entering in. Absolutely.
Exactly. So we brought that full circle.
Yes.
So tell us, what is mental health in your definition? What is mental health?
So when I think of mental health, I really think of like whole body wellness. So that's mental, physical, emotionally, and spiritually well, like just being well. And so that's what I think about when I think about mental health. I don't think about like therapy sessions or, people being crazy and things like that. I really think it's just like wholeness, like your whole being, being well. And so I think about people typically that have the healthiest mental state is people that take care of themselves in all of those areas, right? Like, so their physical body, their mind, they're eating well, they're getting enough exercise, enough sunlight, enough, oxygen, all of those things. That's what comes to my mind when I think of mental health and mental wellness. So I think, though, that people think about, when people hear mental health, they think about, like, it's a very narrow, like, tunnel vision kind of thing. They think about therapy, I would say, or, maybe a mental institution or someone taking medication and all these things, which obviously those are elements and aspects, but that's not like the bigger picture of mental health and mental wellness. So I think that, go ahead.
Oh, no, finish what you saying.
I was going to say, and I also think when people think of mental health, they don't think of like environment, right? Like they don't think about environmental factors. They don't think about family of origin. They don't think about race. They don't think about gender. They like all of those things factor into your mental health and your mental well-being. And so for me, I think about, all the things, like how you grew up as a child, like how you're showing up in the world now, how your parents treated you, right? Like, did you grow up with money? Did you grow up without money? Like all of those things create like how you show up in terms of your mental wellness in different stages of your life. So it's really about like total wellness. It's not just like, oh, you need to go talk to somebody. Sometimes, right? But also there's a lot of external factors that impact our mental health that going to talk to someone in therapy isn't going to help. You know what I'm saying? Like racism, for example. Going to talk to a therapist, yeah, but that's not going to solve the problem of racism and the impacts that it has on you as an individual, right, or as a collective of people. So I think we just have a very narrow vision of what mental health is and what mental wellness really is and how to like get there.
So going back to in that stigma arena, and you being focused on Afrocentric mental health, why do you think? Where do you think that came from for Black people to have a stigma against receiving and going to seek mental health therapy, even if it's not traditional, like going to in therapy sessions, medications, but just focusing on our mental health as a whole? Where do you think that stigma came from, and why we are, but we're moving more out of it now, but turned off from healing? Like what
how much time do we have? Well, I really think, like, historically speaking, again, that's why we have to have more conversations like this and have more education, because I think that the average Black person thinks, when they hear mental health, they think crazy, or they think something related to medication, they think something medical, and we don't have a good history with any of those things in this country. So I think that's where it starts, right? Like, you know, us being dehumanized and not treated human, and, you know, being deemed as crazy and unfit, out of our minds, all of those things. I think that is what we're still fighting against, right? In terms of our, you know, the historical factors. But I think that, and also, so you have that, and then on top of that, you have, we're strong, we're resilient, and that's toxic. Like, I actually despise the word resilience, I really do, and I think that is stuff like that, like, oh, we're strong, look at all that we as a people have endured. It's in our DNA, like, our ancestors have endured all this, and then we're still standing here firm and strong. And so I think that also plays into, like, oh, we don't need to be talking about mental health and all of those things, because we're a strong people. We've been beat and raped and pillaged, and look at us. Yeah. And it's like, and so then you then bring that into, like, the family unit and the family structure, and it's like, there's no love, there's no nurturing, and so we just kind of live, and we don't think, like, those things don't apply to us because we're subhuman.
Absolutely. And to add to that, the religious factor, to put all of your problems into an outside source. And so give it all to God, give it all to, you know, and it takes away from, what's the word? Oh my gosh, the word just lost. Basically, it takes away from you focusing on yourself, the self-reflection, the ability to your humanity, and being able to even acknowledge that there's an issue, because you're like, oh, I just gave this all away, it's going to be resolved miraculously and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, you know,
just give it to God.
Give it to God, absolutely. So
I think those, like, I mean, it's so much more, it's so loaded, but I think that those, like, heavy historical origins is, like, it's just so much that and we're still dealing with it to this day. Absolutely. It's just in a different form, right?
Yep.
And then psychologically being beat, so, like, not only physical, but mentally, spiritually, psychologically beat, and, you know, and being told and fed lies, right? And so, and then again, us as a people being like, man, we've endured all that, and then we're still here. Mm-hmm. So again, reinforcing, like, oh, we don't need that. We don't need to talk about that. And it's like, it really strips away our humanity. And that's why I really focus on Afrocentric philosophy, is because it really, really just focuses on our humanity, which is, like, that was the goal, like, to strip us away from that. And so bringing us back to our humanity, our soul, our internal spiritual abilities and gifts that were stripped away from us and replaced with religion and Christianity, other forms of abuse and slavery. So that, I think that once we get back to our origins, before all the other bullshit came into play, we will be able to focus on our mental health. And the thing about mental health is that I think that we won't even need to use that terminology,
Right.
because it will just be like us being in harmony with our soul, with ourselves, with the earth, with the grass, with the moon, with the star, being in harmony with everything. And that is like modern day, like mental wellness. But we, again, even our ancestors, they didn't speak in that way,
Yeah,
before.
because we intellectualize everything, and that's from, the whiteness of
Again,
things. We
absolutely.
don't, us as a people, we don't intellectualize things. We feel things. We're connected with things. And so we don't try to get, like make it a process. We just
and
are.
that's not him.
Yeah.
And that's all. Yeah, it's a very spiritual. It's a very spiritual journey. It's a spiritual being. And even for people who are religious, they know it's spiritual. It's sometimes it's not even, you can't put it into words. It's just like a physical body experience of being connected with yourself. And that is why we are like in the state we're in, because we've been so disconnected from ourselves, from each other, from community, that's where the healing is. And I also think that people think like, oh, we were able to endure so much and everything, and we're strong. But it's also like, I don't think that people realize that back then there was real community and real village. Even though they were experiencing the most traumatizing things, they were connected. So it wasn't because we're strong and we're so resilient, not to say that we're not, but it's because we were connected. And you can't, exactly, and you can't heal in isolation. So there were codes, there was all kinds of things being done, jumping the broom, all those things to signify, because we couldn't like love out loud, we couldn't be a community out loud. So there were secret codes and all that, and we don't abide by any of that as Black people these days. And so those type of things, we get back to that, we start to heal and mend our mental health.
Yeah.
So
beautifully spoken. Yes. So what led you into the mental health field? What attracted you to it?
It's really interesting. So my mom is also a mental health therapist. And
what?
so
I didn't know that.
So although I wanted to, I think you forgot, but you definitely knew.
No,
but,
I did not know that. You did not share that information with me.
Anyway, I was like, although I really was like, I wanted to always be a teacher. I was like, I started that. But I also felt once, I did my first year, I felt a calling to focus on like social justice issues and things of that nature. And so that's what initially led me into switching over to social work. And then still not knowing that I would be in mental health or a therapist or anything like that, but switching over to social work. But I know I was passionate about like social justice issues and racism and things like that, and Black people and our trauma, still not making the connection, connecting this mental health. But so studying social work and then doing my own work of like, understanding like what it meant to grow up in the inner city, to grow up in a broken home, to grow up in a dysfunctional family, to grow up in poverty, and all these things I was trying to make sense of. And so I think through my journey of making sense of like my life from birth to adulthood, and then starting to do my own therapy and figuring out why I felt the ways that I felt, that I didn't know why. Like, I was so angry. Why am I so angry? And so, through my journey of like learning and exploring and therapy, that's kind of where I started focusing on mental health. And even then, even when I got done with school, I still didn't think that mental health was still not my focus. It didn't become my focus until I found a therapist who specialized in Afrocentric therapy, and through my like experience of receiving that level of therapy, which was very non-traditional. We very much talked about Afrocentric practices and African spirituality and just like very spiritual and soul work. That's when I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And that's what led me to mental health. It was never the like, I want to be a therapist. It was more so like that I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to support people through that type of healing, right? Where you're not sitting in the office and talking about your issues, but really unpacking things and just supporting people and tapping into their soul work. That's, you know, that's just what's been stripped of us.
Yeah.
That was what motivated me to do therapy. And I think that, like, you know, that's the term that fits in this realm. But that's really what it was about for me. It just happened in therapy, but it was really like to support people and connecting to their own healing and their ability to heal themselves and not feel like you're coming to see me and you're getting the healing from me. Like, no, I'm supporting you and walking alongside you and healing yourself.
And you said your therapist had that approach. Your first therapist?
Not my first therapist, but my therapist after I got done with grad school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, because I had many therapists, and it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a therapist. But it wasn't until I got that therapist that I was like, oh, this is different. It feels good. And I felt, like, powerful. I felt like a goddess. I felt like I was the shit. Really. Like, I just felt very much like, you know, that, like, the it girl. And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to give this to all the Black women in the world. Kind of.
Yeah.
So that's, it's like, okay, that's what I want to do. And then realizing, like, I don't have to even be in a therapeutic setting or office to do that either. That's why, you know, because I practiced individual therapy for years, but I'm not doing that currently. But it's kind of been the journey. So ultimately, my goal is to support Black folks in getting connected with their souls and to heal themselves. That's really what mental health means to me, you know?
Do you think it's important for Black people to see a Black therapist, or do you think
Absolutely.
Does it matter?
No, it matters.
Why?
It matters. And I know it matters because we have an unspoken language. Even if we're not speaking it to each other, we have an unspoken language. You know, we have a connectedness, even if we are not like in tune with that or we're not walking in that. We just have a connectedness, and there's nobody that's going to be able to heal or connect with us, you know, like aside from another Black person. And like we have a lived experience that nobody else is going to understand, right? Like, I don't have to tell you what it means to be a Black woman in America. That's not like, I don't have to give you a lesson on what that means, because you are experiencing it, as am I experiencing it. And of course, our Blackness is not like, I'm not saying every single Black person experiences racism in the exact same way, but we all are experiencing anti-Blackness and racism, even if it's not, you know, identical. And so that's a part of a therapeutic process, and you can't, like, how are you going to process that with a white therapist? That is my opinion. That is my unpopular opinion, and I'm okay with that. Now, I do think that you can work with other melanated folks. I still think that Black folks need to be receiving therapy from other Black folks, but I would still prioritize them seeing another melanated person over a white therapist any day. So, yeah.
Okay.
And especially Black, let me also say, Black people receiving therapy from other Black people who are not centering whiteness, because you can very much get a Black therapist who centers whiteness, and that will be just as problematic as a Black person seeing a white therapist. So I think that it's important to do your research when you're looking for a therapist. It's just like with anything else, it has to be a good fit. It has to feel right, the connect, because you're healing, right? And you can't heal in like a toxic, uncomfortable environment.
Yes.
So it really has to be right.
What do you mean about centering whiteness? What do you mean by that? Like somebody.
So I would say practicing therapy from a from a Eurocentric, right? So like basically what I mean is I have my degree, I have my certifications, and I'm licensed. And that was a formality because there was nothing that I learned in school that prepared me to work with Black people, to provide support with therapy to Black people. Well, first of all, I am Black, right? And so I'm an expert at being Black. And I had to go and learn and research the ways in which our ancestors healed and took care of each other and all of those things. And you're not going to find that in school, right? Like going back to the old ways of healing and being and centering ourselves. And Afrocentric practices and philosophies, they didn't teach me that in school. I learned about that after I was already done, right? And so just in a lot of academia is white, that's no secret, right? And so when I say centering whiteness, like literally using the modalities that they learned in school.
That's what I was gonna say, like, because most therapists are trained in the Eurocentric, institutionalized way. So no matter where you go, it's gonna be imprinted into the work, And so how does one, if there's no access to someone like you who has like the in touch with your roots and you have an Afrocentric lens and whatnot and have the spiritual lens to it as well, what would you recommend for somebody to do if they're like, I need mental health therapy or therapist, or I need therapy, I need mental health work, I need mind work? What would your guidance, counsel be for somebody to do? What would you recommend for them to do?
Well, I think if they want therapy specifically, I would just ask them several questions because I don't think that therapy is the only way to heal, right? But so I would ask them, like, what are they hoping to get from therapy? And based on their answer, I would tell them maybe therapy is not the way for them. But if they did want to go to therapy, I would just talk to them about what they would hope to gain from therapy, what they would hope to gain from the therapist, like what type of person would they want? Because there are Christian therapists, there are therapists who, have a holistic approach, who decenter whiteness, and they make that clear. So I would just kind of ask them what they're looking for and to make sure they ask their therapist the right questions, like what are their thoughts and ideas around like specific issues that are specific to them, right? Because you want to be able to bring your full self, right? And some therapists might not be comfortable with people in DV situations, people who don't identify as heterosexual, right? People who are not Christian. So I think it's like just about asking your therapist, what's their philosophy? Like, how do they practice? And I think that, you'll be able to gauge from the conversation if it's going to be a good fit.
I'm glad you said that. You touched on that. But I think my question was just like a mental health in general, like outside of the therapy. I think I said therapy, but I meant like mental health. Like, I want to work on my mental health. What would you recommend if they can't find like a therapist who has all of the ideal therapist for a Black person? Like, what would you recommend they do?
Well, I would recommend that they like basically what are you trying to attain? Like, what are your goals in terms of like whether that be like tangible things like a career, or if it's just like total body mental wellness and clarity, I would just ask them like, what's happening in your world or in your life right now that's creating this mental fog, right? So, and maybe it's, sickness, maybe it's chronic pain, and like really like supporting folks in focusing on those areas. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people automatically think about, oh, you need to go talk to someone. And it's just like, yeah, but maybe you need to be more connected with your family. Maybe you need to
go in nature.
Absolutely.
Go play more.
Right.
Yeah.
Use the people around you. Maybe you're doing too much.
Too
Of that.
much.
Maybe you need
to
to go
rest.
in. Maybe you need to be absolutely. Maybe you need to rest. Maybe you need to meditate. Maybe you need to go within. Maybe you need some time to yourself. Maybe you need some time out of work, or not being busy. Maybe you need to just sit on the damn couch and watch your favorite show all weekend and not feel the pressure of feeling like you got to be productive. Just so there's all kinds of shit. There's these notions of like we have to constantly be working and doing because our worth is attached to how much we can produce, whether that's at work or at home. And so honestly, yes, like sit the fuck down. That's the solution for us. A lot of us. Sit the fuck down.
Yes.
And watch your favorite show. Enjoy your favorite treat. Just the things that we don't really think about, but because we've been programmed to be like, we have to be producing something. We have to do something. We have to do something. And it's like, no, we need to defy that. We need to defy that narrative. That's why I love Trisha Hershey so much. And she is such a blessing to our generation, because it's like lay the fuck down. And not only lay the fuck down, she's also an example, because she'll put things up like, I'm out, I'm resting, I'm unplugging. And so I think those are some things I would talk to people about. Unplug. And these are real things real conversations I have with Black women in my life. Like, oh, I'm tired, I'm stressed. And it's like, or they'll say, oh, I didn't do anything all weekend. It's like, okay. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with the fact that you were in your bed all weekend?
Yes.
Right? So then you're taking care of your body, but then you feel bad and you feel guilty about it.
The trauma, historical narratives and stories that we have. And what also came up is like now people use like having a mental health therapist as a measure of success or prestige or all of that now. So it's like all these like mental traps we get ourselves in as a people. Like now you're missing the point. Like 100%. What are we doing here? What the heck? Right. And for me personally, I personally have never been attracted to going to a mental health therapist, not because of like, oh, it's deemed as crazy or those types of narratives, but I've always felt like the answers live within us anyway. Like the therapist, whoever you're talking to, like they're going to basically ask you the questions that bring out the answers that you already know. So for me, it was like my mental health journey has been more about self-care is such an umbrella term now, but it's more about investment, self-investment, and like doing the things like, oh, I'm paying attention to being aware of what I need. Like, okay, I'm feeling this way, digging deep into why I feel this way, going in there, and then what do I need in order to not feel that way? And then using all the spiritual tools and all that stuff has been more appealing to me. So I'm just piggybacking off of what you're saying. As a mental health therapist yourself is saying that therapy is not just the only way to heal your mental body. You also have all these access to these tools and listening to yourself, trusting yourself, and following yourself. So I appreciate that you as a mental health therapist is also saying you have the power. You have the power. 100%. So
and I think that's what's non-traditional about the work that I did and do, because it's like it's really just a conversation, like, and it's really like a support. It's a interconnectedness. So it's not even about going to have therapy with someone once a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we don't. I appreciate what you said, because I do think I've evolved, because at one point in my life I think I've said we all need therapy, but I don't now mean that in like a traditional sense.
way.
I don't mean that we all need therapy. Go to the office, talk to your therapist once a week. No, therapy is community, it's village, it's brotherhood, it's sisterhood, it's community, it's all that, right? Because we can't heal in isolation, and so we need each other to be able to heal. That's therapy, right? Taking care of our minds, taking care of our bodies, being able to be free to roam about and to be ourselves and not feel like our humanity or self-worth or value is connected to how much we can produce work-wise.
Say that again for the people in the back.
Yes, like it's not connected to how much we can produce. And so for me, that's the therapy, not going to talk to somebody. And I like that you were like, I want that to be the norm. Like moving forward, I want our children or our children's children to be like, why am I going to go see a therapist? I am my therapist. I am a goddess. I am a king. I'm a queen. I have dominion over my life. Whatever it is that I need, I can take care of myself. And I have people around me that's going to support and aid me in doing that. Mm-hmm. That's therapy, right? Yeah. That's mental wellness. That's holistic wellness, not like going to sit in a therapy office. And that will be, when it's needed, great. But that's not going to get us healed. And I think, as I talk, I'm thinking about all of these initiatives to like get Black people and to get Black men into therapy. And it's like, yes, but not the therapy that y'all talking about. Right?
Yeah.
And I think one for Black men specifically is like, we need to create a space where Black men can show up and be their full selves, right? And not be predators because I do think that some folks are just that way, but I feel like that, like not being able to be your full self can sometimes morph into that, right? Like they can't be their full selves in any capacity, right? They have to show up, they have to be strong, they have to be like they don't get to explore with all kinds of things because it's deemed as what in this society, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the therapy is us. The therapy is us healing each other and supporting the wellness of each other. And that is really why I created Healing Black Souls, was because truly that is my desire, is to truly heal Black souls. Yeah. And that does not mean sitting in the office, providing therapy. That really means like going around and like supporting Black people, especially Black women, and to tapping into their soul, into their goddess, into everything that they have and need is within them.
Yes, I 100 totally back those facts. And there was two things that came up for me when you said one, because I was going to ask you already touched on it, like what's the future of mental health for you? Like what does it look like, the future of mental health? So you already touched on that. But two, the point of like sitting in the office and all of that has become a commodity. Like it's a money maker. Like that's what it became about versus just the healing itself. And it's the powers that be, which is in the form of white people, because they control the narrative. So like when we say whiteness, for me, like I'm really like, I don't like the whole like white, Black, racial, like race thing. Like I don't like to like put a lot of emphasis in like racism and whatnot, even though, and I may get flack for that, even though it is a thing, but I'm about like trying to break through that narrative and whatnot. But I do understand that the powers that be are showing up as white people, and this is white supremacy and all of that stuff. And so that those powers that be made it about money and like prestige and all that and whatnot. And so it takes and like I said, they intellectualize things. So it's about the intellectual, the status of it, the words, the language, to cause more confusion and disconnection from the soul aspect of it. Because mental health is actual spirituality. It is spirit.
100%.
And so, it been not watered down, but like trickled down into this intellectual way called psychology. But it's really spirit. It's really soul. It's what they studied from us. That's how they got this branch of education, is from what they studied in our beingness, from living from the soul lens. And so it's deep. But anyway, I love that you touched on what your dreams are when it comes to mental health, because that's important, and how we take our power back with that, and knowing that we have the keys to ourselves and community and the village and all of that. Like, that was
Yeah, and I
A1.
appreciate what you said about like not focusing on whiteness and all of that, but the thing is, I feel like a lot of our people don't even know how deeply it impacts
Yeah.
us. So for me, that's why I spend a lot of time focusing on
Yeah.
educating. But I do feel like the more we get back connected to ourselves,
Yeah.
it won't even be a factor for
Yes.
us. It won't be because we'll truly be in our power. Because
Exactly.
whiteness and white supremacy exists because we're not in our power.
Yep.
But when we're in our power, that shit is going to
is
dissipate.
loud.
It will not work.
It will not work.
And so that's why we are where we are, because it's working, because they've psychologically fucked us.
Yes.
And so once we get that restored and back together, they can't fuck with us.
Yeah.
We ain't gonna be talking about whiteness, because it will have no space, no place, because it's energy. And so we're out of alignment. We're not tapped in solely.
Yes.
And so that's kind of why I, focus on it a lot. But I hear you though. And I think the work, if we do the work, that's the goal. Is to be like, what? That's not a thing.
And that's what you have to get to that place mentally, like you said, the awareness. And that's why I said I acknowledge that it's a thing. It's a reality for people.
But you don't like to give it more power than it already has.
And that's because that's where I'm at in my journey. So I'm able to say that and disconnect from it. But I understand the majority of our people are still awakening, and they need that awareness. They need to know what's at play, because you got to know you got to study your enemy. Basically, you got to know the forces who are against you, so you know what you need to do and to navigate these things. So I do get that, but I know that dang, what was I gonna say? Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, if it'll come back if it needs to. But yeah, just for me personally, like, I know I used to be scared to speak that, to say that, because I'd be like, people be like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a thing, and get into a whole debate. And I'm just like, I don't got time to be going back and forth with people. Like, this is my personal journey, and this is where I'm at in my journey, And so I have been like unblocking my throat chakra and speaking my truth and where I'm at with that, because it's important for people to see ahead too. Like, we need the people who are there, we need the people who are in the past, and we need the people who are in the future. They all we all work together, and so
we need each other.
We need each other because we help move each other forward into the vision that you are speaking of. And you are so on point about the power part, about once we get there, and that's why my business, speaking about or the work that I'm doing with Trust Yourself, Be Yourself, Free Yourself, those are the elements of connecting back into yourself, because that's where you get your power from. Once you're trusting, you're in communication with the ancestors, you're divine or whatnot, you're being your 100 complete self, because that world, the powers that be, don't have dominion or control over you no more. You're in your power, and you done freed yourself because of the first two that came before, because you're not allowing that, because you're in your power. So you free yourself mentally, so it's and that was one of the questions. Why do you think mental health is important? And you touched on that. It's about reclaiming our power, literally. To sum it up, to reclaim our power as a people. So that was beautifully said.
And we can do that in a myriad of ways. And it being in the therapy office.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite way in which you heal your or get clarity, peace of mind, ease in your mental health? Like, is there one modality or way or practice that you like that helps with that for you?
I think I can't think of one thing specifically, but like I said, I'm still growing and evolving and learning. And what I'm really tapping into as of late is just really allowing myself to be. So honestly, doing absolutely nothing, right? Like nothingness.
Yes.
And embracing the nothingness of just being, like laying on the couch and watching a show, or just spending time with my family, going on a walk, really nothingness. Honestly, I think that I'm realizing how much we have filled our lives and plates with things like working on a project and doing work and having 12 jobs and doing all these things, which I'm not saying that it's wrong or it's bad, but I realize that we really treat ourselves, especially black women, as subhumans, and we do not leave space for nothingness. And when I say nothingness, I feel like that will trigger people, but nothingness is really just allowing us to be and not attaching doing something, like creating, making something, right? Like really just allowing space to allowing space to dream. Like Trisha Hershey says, we don't dream because we are always doing something. So there's no space to just be, and really thinking about. And honestly, by me allowing myself to just be, I've been able to get insight about, like, what is it that I really want to do, and dreaming about a better life or a better future for myself, for my community. Like, you don't really get to be in that space when you're too busy doing stuff. And so I'm realizing, like, just allowing myself to be and just nothingness. So for me, really nothingness is the element or the place in my healing journey. Is just, I'm just allowing myself to be. And that could literally be anything, right? Like, I get up, I have my robe on all day, I literally just do nothing. Sometimes I don't even eat because I want nothingness, right? Like, I don't want to do anything. And I think that that's actually my goal, is to support Black women in creating the space of nothingness. And what does that mean, and what does that look like, kind of thing?
And I'm glad you say that, because so first of all, we don't give ourselves permission to do that, because we always have to be on freaking go, or feeling like because our success is attached to production and doing things and all of that. So being intentional about giving ourselves permission to do nothing. But this just goes into, so last moon cycle, being intentional about receive mode. So being in receive mode. So this is when I'm just like, I had it for an hour. This month is like 15 to 30 minutes, where I'm just literally just laying there. Like, I could fall asleep if I want to, whatever, but I'm just laying there and just attached to nothing, not laying there, because when you lay down, you want to look at your phone and scroll or read a book, or that's still doing something, but just literally just letting my body rest, letting just doing nothing, and just there, and just letting the thoughts flow, whatever. And in that, like you said, you receive. You said you got clarity around something. And that's something that I have found is like, that's why it's called receive mode, right? So you receive the downloads you're supposed to, your next steps that you're supposed to, because you're not clearing. And people think like, oh, meditation, but when you're meditating, you're actually doing something then too. This is not meditation. This is just literally just allowing yourself to be. So when you say nothingness, that's what I think of. It's like this receive mode thing. And so being intentional about that, and you can do that, like, even if because it's hard for us, especially as a people, because like I said, our worth and our measure of success is attached to our productivity. And so it's hard. It's a hard thing for us to detach from. And like you said, that's why Trisha Hershey's work is so good, to lay your ass down literally and do nothing, because starting a practice at least for 5 minutes a day, if you can just do it even for a minute, if you don't have that, but then build from there, like that helps you accomplish what you're talking about, is this nothingness, being in your robe and not feeling bad for being around in your robe and walking around, not feeling bad for saying, no, I don't want to eat today, like just like I just want to be, and so that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And I think we talk about healing trauma, I'm kind of drawing a blank right now, but like we talk about healing, and then I think what that makes me think of too is like, I get this strong feeling of like my ancestors are crying out, because it's like, for all of us, our ancestors are like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Like, because it's like all the shit we've been through, the work, the everything our bodies have been put through, and y'all doing all this by choice?
By choice. And I'm so glad you say that, because we don't realize we're free. I've said that so many times, even though, I mean, I get it. Like, I know there's systems in place and whatnot, but we are free. We have choice. We have choice. That's freedom.
We really do. We really have choice that they did not have.
That they did not have. Yeah.
And we're not honoring them by we're not honoring them by not really tapping into our nothingness. And I think that is my new chapter and journey in terms of support and healing that I want to create for Black women specifically, is just nothingness. Because I think even just in regular conversation, it's like, oh, that's lazy, or that's this. I don't believe that any Black person could be lazy ever. I defy that word.
Yeah.
I don't care what they've done or haven't done. That's just a word I defy. That doesn't even, that word, our ancestors have worked enough, and this country is indebted to every single Black person. So those are the things that I want us to get and understand as a people. Yes. That doesn't mean we don't work, we don't create. Like, we're naturally like that. We're naturally creators. Like, we're not. But how much more powerful we could be, how much more creativity, how much more abundance, everything, money, peace, freedom, ease, when we spend time in a place of nothingness. And I want that too. I want that for us as a people. So in terms of my mental health, now that's what I have been leaning into, a space of nothingness, and also trying to figure out who I am outside of being a mother, being a partner, being an educator, being a mental health therapist, being a healer, being all of these things. Like, who am I? Yeah. And what do I want? And you can't really get to that place if you always center everything else.
Yes, absolutely. So, that is some powerful work, and that needs to be talked about a lot more, or just practiced or shown and demonstrated, is really getting to the root of your identity outside of the labels and all of the things, because in that you find, purpose, but not purpose in a way of productivity and passion and stuff, but your purpose as a soul, and us just being here incarnated in this human body. Like, it's to receive, it's to be in joy and happiness, and that's it. Absolutely. That is why we were created, to experience life and love life and be here. Like, yes, create and build and for future generations and all of that, but we came here to enjoy life, to experience being human. What does it mean to be human? So I love that, and I love that you're stepping into that work, and that's what you're going to be leading and creating the space for us Black women. So we're gonna have to know those details when you get it up and running, so that
sure, I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. So let's see, what else I have on the list? I love this conversation. Okay, so I always ask this to the Well Body Wednesday guests. If you could take a portal to the past, which era of time do you think the mental health therapy, or it could be therapist or just mental health and practice therapy, or just mental health in general, which era do you think this mindset or this access to this would have benefited us as a collective, so we wouldn't have to do all of this healing and stuff today? Which era of time do you think this could have benefited us as a collective?
Wow, that's a good question. I think that's really, really a hard and good question. But But I think that, I think before slavery, I think we already had it, but I think that maybe elements of like not taking it for granted. So like, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking of like so many different time zones or time frames, and I can't help but think that it would have been the most beneficial when we were still like unified. So I would even say before integration, yeah, it could even before integration, right? Like, and really us thinking about what does this really mean, and I think that we didn't. The what I'm thinking is like we integrated because we were already like starting to enter a phase of being disconnected from our power, just because of the fact that we even wanted to integrate. That tells me like, oh, we're
relying on somebody else for a power source.
Yeah, when we were like, we had everything, we created everything, like we birth humanity, the Black woman, right? So like everything starts with us. So I think that probably right before segregation, because I think that was like the last straw to like really stripping us completely. Because I don't think we were stripped completely at that point. There had been, of course, significant damage, but I would say before segregation is probably where I would focus, because I think that was like the last point of which we had our powers.
Yeah.
And I think that was what just kind of set it off for us.
Okay. So, if you could recommend one quote, mantra, or book on mental health, what would it be?
I mean, I would say every Black woman needs to read Trisha Hershey's Rest is Resistance.
Okay.
And like we said, mental health is not just like, I think that book for me has really, I feel like it's really like supported me and helped me move more forward in terms of my journey to like wellness and healing. And what's interesting is that I don't think that people would even consider that book like about wellness, about healing, or anything like that. But I definitely would consider it to be like all encompassing of that. Like any book that is speaking to Black women in the Black community, because I think it's for all of us, but speaking to us about taking care of ourselves, but like in a very unapologetic, like revolutionary way, right? Like she even says like, I'm not talking about go on a vacation out of the country or be on the beach for 7 days just to go back to work and be mad and miserable and overworked and tired. Like, it's like a very deep place of like resting.
Yeah.
And so that I think ties into this nothingness that I'm talking about. Like, we have to rest our mind, bodies, and souls like we've never done before. And again, I'll go back to our ancestors. They literally could not, because it meant a matter of life and death if they did. Now, we're not doing that, and it's meaning a matter of life and death, right? Like literally, not resting is killing us. Our ancestors could not rest. And they also wrote about it. Like, they've sent messages to us about resting and taking care of ourselves. And so, and they didn't even have access to that. So that literally was them giving us the blueprint of like this revolutionary work that we have to do. And so for me, I would say that is the book that every Black woman should be reading. And that's what that is the book that I mean, of course, I'm an avid reader, but that for right now, I'm just like that. I read that, I've read and I read that, and I'm just like, this is what I want for every Black woman. And I feel confident that Trisha Hershey wants that for us. And I think that, like, you know, not only reading it, but also embodying it. And I feel like that's the hardest part.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people read that, but it's the embodiment of it. And it's still, that's the mental lock that people don't feel like you have permission to do that. Or there's all these excuses. I don't have the time. I don't have this. I got kids. I got that. I got this. So what would you recommend for somebody who says that? Like, make these...
I think I'm good. So she speaks to that in the book. She speaks about capitalism. And I think I don't want to minimize people's experiences, because we do have real life. We do have to pay our bills. We do have to do all of these things. And we also have to take care of ourselves. Yeah. So it's like, you know, if you don't like pay your bills, you're going to be homeless. Yeah. And you wouldn't even think about not doing that, right? So until we get to the place where we don't even think about not resting, and I'm saying resting, but it's different for everyone. We just all need to be in a place where we allow ourselves to rest, right? Like, that might look like me lounging on the couch doing nothing. That might look like you tending to your garden, because that's what makes you feel whole and feel rested.
Yes.
But you don't have the time or space or energy to do that, right? But it's like that, like making space to just be, right? And so I think that, we just got to get out of our own way. And I think the excuses, which, you know, not saying it in a judgmental way, I think it's a lack of understanding. Once we understand that as a community, the importance of taking care of ourselves and taking care of each other, we won't say, oh, I can't do that because I got to pay for my bills. I can't do that because I'm a mom. And it'll be, I have to do that because I'm a mom. I have to do that because abundance is like abundance is real, and we lock the access, like being in the place of like, I gotta pay these bills, I gotta make this money. That's an energy, that's a space, right? And so by saying that, you're not creating space for the alternative. And so I think just really having those conversations and supporting people and getting out of that mentality, because it's really a mentality, right? But also not being like, oh, whatever. I'm not saying like, don't pay your bills or we don't live in a capitalistic society. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that once we get into a place of tapping into our higher selves and taking care of our mental health, we'll be able to see beyond that. We'll be able to see beyond like, oh, I got to pay my bills. I got to put myself last. Well, that won't be our thought process.
Yeah.
And that's the issue.
And that's what it brings up for me, is the valuing of rest. Like, a lot of people, majority of people don't value rest because they haven't identified what rest means for them. And so once you do identify what rest means for you and how it can support you and benefit you in your life, then the value comes in and you value it, and then it becomes a non-negotiable. Like, I have to do this. And people need to see the connection, like find the thread, like where are you, how, if you see like where you're lacking or whatever you're lacking in your life and how rest ties into that or doesn't, then you will see like the connection and be like, okay, this is why I need to value this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very deep. Very deep.
Yeah, it's very nuanced. But
very
I
nuanced.
think that would be the book that I would really recommend.
Yes. Okay. So I got two last little fun questions. One.
Okay.
What do you love about your body? Because it's Well Body Wednesday. So tell us what you love about your body.
What I love about my body is like body parts, or like just...
Everybody asks me that. It's whatever you deem as your body, like your whole, it could, because I have a multi-dimensional definition of body. So whatever you deem as your definition.
Okay, so I'm going to keep it superficial because I don't want to get too deep, because I think we're indie, and I think my mind is already blown by our conversation. So I'll keep it superficial. I well, let me just preface it by saying I'm working on, I think because of a lot of the things we've talked about, I'm really working on embracing my whole body in whatever state it's in. But for superficial reasons, I really love my hands and my feet because my mom has always had really nice hands and feet. And all my life, my dad has been like, you have such nice hands and feet, just like your mom. And he would just say that all the time. And as a kid and when you're younger, you're just kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
But now, like in my big old age now, I like feel something about that just makes me appreciate my hands and my feet now. And I just really love my hands. I really love my feet. And I just often think about that and my dad being like, you have hands and feet just like your mom. And so I just think about that often. And I feel like it's a superficial thing, not in a negative way, but I would say my hands and my feet are my favorite, and I'm very vain about both of them. And what's interesting is now my daughter, her hands and feet look exactly like her dad's, and I just find it so interesting because it just makes me think about my dad. Always, like, and he would even be like, "Oh, you so lucky, you got your mom hands and your feet."
That's beautiful.
Yep,
and that's funny because my experience is the opposite with hands and feet because it was like a negative connotation. Oh, you got feet like your grandma. You got feet like your mom. Your hands are rough. Like, so for me, like
that's so funny.
And so when I think about hands and feet, like it's not like a huge thing. It used to be because I struggle with body image stuff. But in my toes being, well, your toes are so little like your mom or whatever. And so so when I think about my hands and feet, for me, when you say that, I'd be like, oh, that's beautiful that you embrace your hands and feet because the experience is opposite for me. So I love that. That's super beautiful. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. And then my last question is, if you could sum up your mental health journey in a song, what would that song be?
A song?
A song, girl.
Oh my God, a song.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Oh my goodness. That is wow. I don't know why, but I don't even like this song, but it just came to my head. I don't even know what the name of it is, but it's Alicia Keys.
Mm-hmm.
The one, some people want it all, just it all. If it ain't you, babe. I mean, I guess it would be to myself.
Yeah.
That would be to myself. That's weird. I am not an Alicia Keys fan. I don't even remember hearing that song. Probably in like maybe 15 years.
That was your higher self, your soul coming in. That your soul is like, I don't want nothing at all if it ain't fully you, if it ain't you, baby. You talking to yourself. See, I see music. That's why I love music, because I don't see music for like face value as it's like, I mean, yes, it's superficial, but I feel the soul and the essence behind the song, the spirituality around the song. So I love that you said that, because you're talking about nothingness too. And there's nothing in this song. I don't want nothing if I don't have you. And you really are like calling yourself. You want yourself, your full self, your healed self. I love that so much. That's beautiful.
So and what's crazy is when you asked me, that song popped in my head, and I was like, no, I don't like that song. And I don't like Alicia Keys. Literally. Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, that can't be the song. I don't even like Alicia Keys or that song. But I had to say it because that truly is what came up.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I love that. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Now I'm gonna go look up.
Right. Now you gotta listen to it every day.
And I gotta listen to it.
It activates you. I love that so much. That's powerful. That's beautiful.
It is.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
That's deep for real. Oh my gosh. Well, I enjoyed our time together.
Me
this
too.
is amazing. Can you tell people where to find you? Have any like services or things you're offering right now or anything, and if not, where to find you, to reach out and connect with you, follow you, all the things?
Yeah, so It's summer, so I take time in the summer, but I can still be reached via email. So it's healingblacksouls.org is my
Wait, hold
website.
up. I just realized you said you wanted to be a teacher when you were younger. You are a teacher. You was teaching at PSU.
Yeah, I know. I
I,
said
I
that.
don't know why I didn't even make that connection until you just said that. But anyway, my bad. I was just
Yeah,
like, oh
that's
my
so funny.
God.
I'm definitely an educator in many aspects, but
Yeah.
so healingblacksouls.org is where you can find me, my website, and through my website you can send me a message or call me. My email is kiana@healingblacksouls.org. I'm also on Instagram, healingblacksouls underscore in between each word. And yeah, but the best way to reach me is via email or through my portal on my website. And right now, I'm offering workshops and trainings specific to Black mental health. And I do have some exciting things that I'm working on, and I really can't wait until they all kind of come together. So, but for now, that's how you can find me.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope y'all got some good gems from this talk. And we will be back for the next Well Body Wednesday. And we'll talk to you soon. Love and blessings.